Good afternoon to you. Mark Sutton with HurricaneTrack.com here with your hurricane outlook and discussion for Tuesday, September 6, 2016. Good news here. All coastal tropical storm warnings discontinued. This is the last advisory on Hermine. This is it. It is no longer even a tropical system. I mean, it's still there, but it's pretty much gone now. It's weakening, and it has transitioned to just a post-tropical, after-the-fact kind of situation. It will still bring some gusty winds, a few high tide cycles to portions of the northeast, but no tropical storm warnings are in effect. This is a satellite picture of it. Very vigorous low-level circulation associated with it, meaning that it has basically a good framework to work with, but there's no energy to speak of. Water temperatures in this area have cooled off substantially. I'll show you that in just a moment. And it lacks any organized deep convection. There's also quite a bit of dry air through this region, and so it's just going to be a remnant low. That is the best way to describe it. So sea surface temperatures, speaking of those, the anomalies, departures from normal, this area up here will change by the time I show you this on Thursday. This was valid yesterday, and you'll see this will change. But overall, the Atlantic Basin from Africa through most of the Gulf here is quite a bit above the long-term average, especially in the main development region, where we haven't had much development, so it kind of doesn't matter, but it's there nonetheless. And of course, the subtropical Atlantic here, and even over here east of the Iberian Peninsula, running a bit above the long-term average. And then we have the cold La Nina signal here trying to show up in the Pacific. The Nino 3.4 reading, which is basically kind of like this area roughly, is now down to negative 0.7 degrees. So it's at La Nina threshold. We just have to see if it holds for, I think, 90 days or something like that, below about a half a degree Celsius. So we are basically in weak La Nina conditions, and we are still 5 days away. September 10th is the peak of the hurricane season, so we're not quite halfway there. So we've already had all this activity up to now, including one hurricane landfall, and we still have the rest of the season to go. So do keep that in mind. As I was mentioning, water temperatures up here, this is where the remnant low of Hermine is located, and those water temperatures 24, 23, 22 Celsius, not warm enough, upper 60s to lower 70s. That's not going to cut it. The ocean heat content is down here. It's been pushed and eroded away, so that's good news for the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic states for the rest of the season, for the most part. Now, yes, you can still bring something out of the deep tropics and run it right up into the Northeast if it's moving fast enough and slam this area with a big storm surge and some wind damage. I'm not saying you're completely out of the woods, but as far as Hermine goes, you pretty much are, with the exception of, again, some higher tides along this area, maybe some gusty winds, but the overall trend is looking better, and this system will finally get out of the way in the next few days. The Gulf of Mexico cooled off over on the northeast side due to the interaction of Hermine coming over that water and turning it up, but this will warm up again a little bit in the coming weeks. The western Gulf here from about Mississippi coast and we'll call it about 88 degrees longitude and points west, still very much on the warm side, 29, 30 degrees Celsius, mid to upper 80s. What's happening out there today? Well, the tropics percolating, but the coffee's not ready yet, so to speak. And we have this system here. I'm surprised it's not mentioned. We have X92L here. This is pretty much dead on the vine. And up here off the coast in the satellite picture is the remnants of Hermine. And then we have another system coming off Africa, which I can show you in a moment. We'll talk more about the Atlantic Basin here in just a minute. I want to touch upon the eastern Pacific, where Newton made landfall as a hurricane last night over Cabo San Lucas and vicinity. It was just the eye, barely just went across the coastline here, and then it's moved on up, and it's going to head in towards the southwest United States as a remnant low. And you can see that this, too, is eroding fast. The west side of the circulation drying out and kind of deflating. Still pretty good energy on this east side, and this will move up towards the southwest, where Arizona, southern Arizona, Tucson and vicinity, along the I-10 area, and points north and south of that, plus or minus 50 miles, depending on where you are. Could see some heavy rain. Those dry washes and arroyos could fill up rather quickly, dry streams and creek beds, so be on the lookout for that if you're traveling through. But this will weaken quickly and won't be too much of an issue. It doesn't look like it was loaded up as much as Odile was and Norbert back in 2014. Still a flood threat. Take it seriously. Stay aware if you're in the desert Southwest, especially Arizona, all right? So here's the latest graphical tropical weather outlook. This area getting a 70% probability of development. And I was looking at the GFS run, the 12Z run, and I just don't know where this is coming from. Maybe other models are showing it, and I mean 70%, that's pretty good. This has got a high chance of development. If it does develop, it'll probably feel the mid-Atlantic trough out here and just stay out to sea. We'll see what happens. Let's see, I know I have a yeah, here's the text product on it. Just wanted to show you this. 70% chance of development right there, and they mentioned that a tropical depression could form by the weekend as the system moves generally towards the open central Atlantic. Here's a shot of that area right here off the coast of Africa. Some Saharan air layer trying to come off with it, other impulses over Africa, but the GFS especially not enthused with this system at all. Now the 0Z run last night, basically it's kind of like pop up, pop down, okay? Depends on what run you look at. The 0Z run last night developed a couple of these systems and brought them west, and it kind of made me say, it could be an interesting mid to latter part of September. But then the 12Z run today was very unenthusiastic with development. And here's an interesting take on why I'm not too impressed with this system's chances for development. First of all, everything has struggled, so why would that change now? And, that might be flawed logic, but, you sometimes have to go with the simple solution, right? The old Occam's razor principle. The simplest solution, all things being equal, usually turns out to be the correct answer. And so then I look at the MJO, the Madden-Julian oscillation, and this would be a period of fertility, so to speak, in the tropics, where, hey, it's really primed, the atmosphere has some good forcing and upward motion with it, and the GFS generally advertising weak, favorable MJO conditions in the areas that we're most interested in, typically speaking, phases 1 and maybe 2 here. It's been stuck over in 6 for quite a while, and favoring the Pacific for the most part. The Euro, on the other hand, says, no, not going to go over to phases 1 and 2. Instead, I'm going to hang out very weakly, very, very low MJO activity, if at all, towards the Indian Ocean area, phase 3. Now, this is a change. It's not in phase 6 anymore. You can clearly see that. So, maybe this will swing over to the Western Hemisphere. Just for now, I'm not seeing, I guess, what they are seeing at the Hurricane Center. Not arguing with them, I'm just skeptical of the chances because of what we've seen before. So, and even if it does develop, that northwest jog, it looks like it would be taking there, as you can see, this would tend to keep it out over the Atlantic. It could bend back, but this will be interesting to watch. We'll see if there's actually what we call genesis out here, and if there's not, then good, and if so, we'll watch it. So, pretty good uptick in activity on the YouTube channel. I appreciate that. I also had a fair number of people purchase our app. Hopefully you can follow along in the app on the go. That's a really good tool to have. Check the latest video updates. I did activate the weather station up in New Jersey, and the video post that on the road kept those going. Of course, the blog and everything. That's all in the app, and the app is going to grow. I'm meeting with our developer tomorrow, actually, to make some changes that will help improve it. I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully you will too. I'm actually going to put an area in there where you can access our live video feeds. I'm going to get rid of one part and add another. I'll talk about it later. But of course, subscribe here for future updates if you're watching on YouTube, and you can follow me on Twitter at HurricaneTrack, and I'll try to keep you posted as the season nears the midpoint. From there on, it could be busier than the first half. It could be absolutely dead. We'll have to just wait and see. One thing's for sure, we will all be in it together. Thanks as always for tuning in, and thanks for all the feedback and the support and encouragement while I was on the road, covering Hermine, some extraordinary video from our unmanned cameras, which I will be talking about in future updates to talk about what worked, what didn't, what I could do differently, and improve upon everything. All right? So until then, have a great rest of your Tuesday. I am Mark Sept for HurricaneTrack.com. I'll be back with you tomorrow.